The best way that I've ever found to help people make sense of what's new is by meaningfully connecting it to what's known. And how do you do that? Through analogies and through stories.
Mike Bechtel, Futurist.
Facts.
Awesome. We're talking about what that is here, but what I'd like to do first is to kick this conversation off with a segment I like to call Sven's Diagrams. There'll be like a little graphic that pops up and it's Sven and he's holding a diagram or something like that. Kind of like a late show kind of a bit.
I'm manifesting Swedish Chef vibes,
Okay,
but
good.
I'm ready.
There's a song probably too.
Okay.
All right, here's the first one I wanted to show you. And I think I kind of looked you up and I found that you like a Venn diagram, I think.
I do. I'm a sucker for the visual representation of data.
Okay, so here's the first one I'd like to pop up here. And this should be familiar to you here. I found this on one of your social media feeds.
Matt, these are the sorts of things that happen when I know vacation needs to come to a close.
Okay.
Right? You know, the daiquiri's in hand, the thumbs start, looking for things to do, and the next thing you know, I created this on the beach.
So this is, the three circles are, of course, Eddie Vedder, a duck, and then
Jean Valjean from Les Miserables.
And did you have these floating around in your mind and you're like, wait a second, there's some overlap here.
I think what was in the back of my head was this idea that with AI, you're dealing with a funhouse mirror.
Yeah.
It's as interesting as the questions you ask it.
Sure.
And so I said, can you help me find compelling intersections between completely unrelated nouns? And it said, yeah, what do you got? And then again, daiquiri fueled. I said, I don't know, Jean Valjean from Les Mis, Eddie Vedder, and then I looked over on the beach. I'm like, and a duck.
Yeah.
And it says, yeah, here we go.
And it came up with don't mind stealing bread, because that is amazing. And I also like that Eddie Vedder's on top, because your eye just goes right there and you're like, wait a second, I got to unpack this. But this is another fun one, not a Venn diagram. It's a little of a departure, but I just like this. What was the background here, or the context?
Well, I think for me, Matt, so in my work as a futurist, what is that, right? It's a puffy-chested 3-syllable synonym for historian, which is, I suppose, not that puffy-chested because it's shortened. But when you say you're looking at the future, people immediately want that Babe Ruth, like, call the shot, like, tell me what's happening next.
What are your predictions?
And the way I look at it is it's not about prediction, it's about projection. And for me, projection is all about looking at the broader trend. It's a zoom out, not a jump forward.
So I think you've probably had to explain this every single time that you've ever talked to anybody. But as a futurist, I guess, what is a futurist? What are you doing? What's the actual work that you're doing? Are you working, or are you just having a ball?
Having a ball. Both are true. I think the Venn diagram of working and having a ball are true. So, in short, what's a futurist? I help clients around the world make sense of what's new and what's next. Full stop.
And people hire you for that.
100%.
Yeah.
And the reason, and I'm gratefully so, is there's this feeling. One of the first professional futurists, a fellow named Alvin Toffler, he said back in the 70s, 80s, that there's this idea called future shock, that we receive novelty as a threat. It's this discontinuous freak out, and you lose your mind with this temptation to call every novelty unprecedented. And by saying something's unprecedented, what you're doing is you're kind of absolving yourself of adult leaderly responsibilities to figure out, have we seen things like this before, and how might we react?
Right.
And so, as a futurist, the way I make sense of what's new and next in tech, in society and culture, is, again, you pull that lens out, you see, maybe not where we've seen this before, but where have we seen shades of this before?
Sure.
And so when someone comes along and says, this AI, it's a hero, it's going to save us, or it's a villain out to get us, I say, well, in these ways, it reminds me of the World Wide Web. We said a lot of the same things about that. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Right.
And so how can we use that sort of symmetry to make risk-adjusted moves into the future.
Love it. And it seems like you're looking for patterns, right? In ways. And I think that is kind of the same thing with storytelling, which is this practice that we're, Fungi Media, what we're doing, what we're teaching, what we're doing with our clients. And you obviously, you're a storyteller because you have to tell stories all day. I guess help me understand the connection between this work as a futurist to storytelling, because you actually have a keynote about this too, right?
Yes, and Matt, I have to tell you, the best way that I've ever found to help people make sense of what's new is by meaningfully connecting it to what's known. And how do you do that? Through analogies and through stories. This idea of connecting a narrative you know to a novelty you don't, that's learning. And what I find, and just like you did, Matt, how you laughed there, humor is about new connections forming in the brain. That's why people laugh. That's why discussing comedy
That's
kills
why these
comedy.
Venn diagrams work so dang well.
100%.
I didn't connect those three before, now I did. Hilarious.
But I'll tell you what, buddy, when the brain makes new and unexpected connections, it releases dopamine, it creates learning, and it creates joy. And what I think great stories do, right, is they adjust that mixing board between normalcy and novelty. Just when you think you know what's going, there's just that little bit of fresh ingredient. You go, And I think that it's that connection making, right, that matters so much in a great story, and it matters in helping people feel more confident about the future too.
Yeah. So in what context, I mean, going into your, what you're teaching people about storytelling, like what context are you talking about storytelling? Obviously for you, you're talking about connecting those dots, using patterns and helping people understand what's new from what's known.
Right.
How does that apply to somebody who's not a futurist, I guess?
As an investor, having founded a venture capital firm and putting money where our mouths were, you kind of learn the art of the possible, the art of the profitable. All that said, my work has mostly been around tech.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing about tech is, it's filled to the brim with jargon and acronyms and sort of arcane inside baseball lingo. And from the outside in, it's jibber jabber. And so for me, it's really about pulling the lens back and helping people cut through what I like to sometimes call weapons of mass distraction. Because in this age of people half attending to everything over smartphones, Teams calls with cameras off, multitasking everywhere, if you're not clear on the delivery, right, in a way that makes total sense to the counterparty, you're just adding to noise, not signal, man.
Yeah. And so is it in the context of, people talking to people at work? Is it in the context of, marketing is what we're doing? Right. Is it kind of all of the above? Are these fundamental sort of practices that just really that's just storytelling 101? It applies to everything?
I think it does. Most of my work around the art of storytelling or executive communications, narrative competence, it's typically in the format of how do you give an executive update? How do you give a talk? And, there are certain pieces of the playbook that make sense for a 15-minute board or C-suite or departmental presentation that don't lend themselves to the proverbial elevator discussion. But I think a lot of them are consistent regardless of time or scale.
What are a couple of things that are those fundamentals that sort of pull through all those examples?
Well, Matt, I think one of the first goof ups is that people believe when they're telling a story that they have to immediately fill the space with words, that you have to jump straight to the notes as opposed to leave some space right between the notes. And so I think the first thing I always encourage people to do is just shush.
Yeah.
Consider your audience.
Yeah.
Right? Why are they here? What do they want? I remember seeing this documentary on Led Zeppelin forever ago. Jimmy Page from Zeppelin, he was asked, he's like, what makes Led Zeppelin Led Zeppelin? What really makes you you? And he goes, well, it's the light and the dark, the space between the notes. It's quiet, it's loud, it's happy, it's sad. And it was that exercise in contrasts.
Yeah.
That I think a great storyteller takes a break. They get excited to connote excitement, and they slow down for gravitas. And So I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Use your space.
I think that's also understanding that I think people just, and myself included, can be uncomfortable with silence, right? So it's like even there's something happening inside of you, before the words even, which you're just like, oh, there's a space, got to fill it, got to make sure, because why do you think that is? Like, why is it that like space needs to be filled by us humans?
So I have a theory on this for
Yeah.
sure, and it's I think if people feel like they're talking, they can't be challenged or threatened by the counterparty's words or offerings. It manifests in all sorts of ways. Some of the most junior people I've ever worked with, they'll typically come in to a meeting and they'll be like, Matt, I know you're really busy because you're like a leader and all that. Oh, that's not important right now. I'm sorry. But anyway, so I've made 64 slides, and on slide 63, not that you have to look because it's in the appendix, but
Yeah.
what's going on there is if they shush, there's a chance that you could give them more work. You could tell them this, not that. You could challenge them in a way that's more maybe stressful than them just filibustering and scramming. Social psychologist who taught me that the reason people uptalk is that by answering declarations as a question, you're asking the counterparty to nod and validate you
continue to
and give
do this,
you permission to keep going.
Right.
Contrast that with the most gravity-filled person you've ever worked with. They come into the meeting. What's next? Because there's a confidence there that nobody's going to knock them off their strut, right? Own your space.
Yeah. And there's something, I think, too, it's like we need to fill the silence is maybe a go-to. Not everybody. There are people that have a little bit something different in the DNA, and I don't know what it is. But there's also, I think, connected to that is this concern with being disliked.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about, and I mentioned this book to you when we first talked about, it's this book called The Courage to Be Disliked. And I got to remember what the name of the author is. But I read it and I thought, oh my gosh, like there's so much happening inside of us, and it could be something trauma, it could be something that's just in us, whatever it is. But if we're constantly searching for the group, I mean, it's that tribal sense, we've got to be a part of the group. Like, how do we continue to validate that we're part of the group? But ironically, it works against us in so many of these contexts.
I think the vast majority of folks, you want to be liked.
Right.
And back to futurists as historians, you go way back in Homo sapiens, as vulnerable, squishy little, wimpy little mammals, we're not going to win all that many fist fights in the jungle.
Right.
And so it's our fit with the rest of the community.
Yeah.
Right. Our not being an outsider that's become a survival mechanism. And so I think, to your point, taken to an extreme in today's society, that can be as toxic as it is it is helpful.
And I think people, what's also interesting to me is I think the vast majority of people, like white collar workers, I mean, people in this sort of information world, I don't know if they get a lot of reps or they get a lot of mentorship even on this subject. And even they're working for somebody who maybe is somebody who is a manager or a leader who is maybe somebody who's a good storyteller, but they're not necessarily, don't even have time to like give them to help them work through this. So I think that's just one of the things, reps, right?
Reps.
Like being like in the moment where you're just pressure tested and given feedback a lot. It takes a lot of reps.
I think one of the things we can do as colleagues, as leaders, is to create safe spaces for our relatively junior people to have those reps, to have those at-bats.
Yeah.
I remember during my time at Deloitte, people didn't think it was weird. They just thought it was notable that my team had younger than usual people giving bigger than usual presentations. And it wasn't that I was waking up in the morning with some, mustache twisting plot. It was just that recognition that, if you don't have the opportunities in safe spaces, you're not going to have that apprenticeship moment. It's funny, Matt. I remember I was talking to someone from another consultancy who shall protected,
Okay, let's protect.
but whose identity, I should say, should be protected. Yeah, we'll see what happens to them. But I remember this stodgy old guy. He said, "A well-delivered corporate engagement."
So he's English.
100%.
Okay,
And-
we know
and
that.
Think of the bankers from Mary Poppins. I mean, this is like English.
I just watched Mary Poppins yesterday.
Really?
I have a 3-year-old.
Tuppence.
Tuppence a bag.
So just imagine that energy.
Feed the. Oh, sorry, we're not doing this right now. Keep going.
Feed the birds, tuppence, tuppence. So this guy, he says, a time-honored client-facing deliverable must include a situation, a complication, and a resolution. And I'm sitting there annoyed, and I'm annoyed because I agree with them.
Yeah.
They said, invention is the conversion of money into new ideas. Innovation is a conversion of new ideas into money. What that got me thinking years ago,
I love that.
was that when you're focused on too much novelty, right, you typically get, what do? You get grant funding, maybe a PhD, and a lot of notoriety, right, and well-deserved.
Yeah, 100%, totally. And I think that resonates with me as an entrepreneur, that just enough innovation and you've got something. And the example, I think that we have a sort of this program that we call it a social selling program. And basically what we're doing is we're helping a team, figure out what their message is, get really clear, get aligned around it. And that's not new. People have been doing messaging and helping executives get aligned on a message for a long time. And then you make videos and you post them on social media, and that helps you get the message out, right? And that's not very new. But in a certain context, within especially like B2B and where it's like not necessarily Coca-Cola, it's corporate real estate, helping them figure out, okay, well, let's get the message right, and then let's capture that on video, and then we're going to share that on your guys' LinkedIn profiles as a team sport over a year, and we're going to hit people. And that, again, all of those pieces are not new,
Right.
but we've had such an amazing amount of success with that, where they're winning some of their biggest clients. Their clients are saying, this content helped me make the decision. It's like a mic drop, testimonial for this work. And nobody else is showing up in their category like that, right? And so it's like, what you're saying just resonates so much with how we think about things or the problems we're trying to solve. We're like, well, if we take this and we put this together,
That's it.
that's the amount of novelty we need. And it also helps them understand what we're doing, because we're not reinventing the wheel.
Well, I think Matt, first of all, congrats on your success with that, because that's the stuff right there, right? A thoughtfully assembled mix of proven winners, right? Delivered with sort of repeatability and reliability, like game on. I think part of the reason that good stories or good businesses balance this mix of normalcy, novelty, right? What's known and what's new. It's because the human mind only has so much space to attend to anything. And so, to your point, if you have to explain all of your cleverness from soup to nuts, 0 to 100, all of it's fresh, whoa, people are overwhelmed, they're fatigued. But if you can, in computer science, there's this nerd alert, but there's this concept called a pointer. And a pointer basically says, like, rather than writing out a whole bunch of stuff, it goes, like that thing. That's what a good story does.
So, one question going back to to wrap up the storytelling thing.
Sure.
Create some empathy and understand your audience and put yourself in their shoes, because you've been an audience before.
Oh, yeah.
That changes everything, I think, right?
Well,
and I don't think we always do that.
Dude, the empathy thing, it's interesting. Thinking a bit about why people are there, right? Why your counterparty is there. There's the explicit rationale, right? If I'm up giving a keynote to chief information officers to help them understand how to speak wizardry for muggles, that part's pretty overt. Where I think empathy comes in extra, to your point, Matt, is take a pause to think about their tacit assessments of me, of the content. And what I mean by that, plain English, preconceptions, fair or otherwise, right? It's a touchy and vulnerable subject, but as unfair and lousy as it is, people have preconceptions within 7 seconds of meeting you.
Yeah.
And I know when I get up in front of, let's say, we'll stick with that example, a bunch of CIOs, chief information officers, right? Between my title as futurist, my penchant for fun accents, my hand-waving sensibilities, there's a 93.5% chance they think I'm nuts.
Yeah.
And so what do? Proactively use that time, that space between, in this case, before the notes, to diffuse that, right? I come to you as an inventor with patents. Oh, he's a bit credible. And a venture capitalist who's managed a $25 million fund.
He actually knows business
He
things.
knows banking.
Yeah.
That's not boasting in that context. In
Right.
that context, it's proactive diffusing of potential bombs. And I think good storytellers, when they walk into a room, they're not just using that silence to create intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
They're using it to say, she's worried I'm too young. That cat thinks I'm nuts. That gentleman thinks I'm going to lose his money. Right? And getting out in front of that helps you build a story that checks those boxes. When I first started writing, beyond a self-published means, I was a freelance columnist for Inc. magazine.
Oh, cool.
It was super cool. It was great. And I remember the
They do stuff with words.
it's a veritable word factory.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the audition for that, it felt like a movie montage in Rocky IV. Like, getting strong now. You know, you're practicing, I want a paragraph on this. Now I want a considered paragraph on this, a reflection on that.
They're having you do these
Yes.
things in order to earn the job.
Right, the training
Yeah.
montage. Well, I get in, I get the gig, as it were. And I remember I turned in my first piece to my editor. And I says, I hope you like it. She says, I mostly focus on the headlines for SEO. I don't really read the bag of words. I go, bag of words?
Oh.
Like, well,
The bag of words.
if you remember Christmas stories, like drink more Ovaltine.
Yeah,
You know, it was
like
that
such a
feeling.
letdown.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. What? Aren't you the craftsperson? Yeah.
What I learned there became a harbinger, I think, for the last 5, 10, 15 years is as the clickbait economy and grabby headlines gave way to the rage bait economy and the outrage factor. Quiet people, just with people haven't had anything to say on LinkedIn ever, are now daily thought leaders with,
Right?
I think, thoughtfully constructed narratives and stories are going to matter more than ever.
Yeah.
I agree, because it's that scarcity mind. Like when authenticity, or like you said, a story that's actually decent and good is harder to find, we're still humans.
Right.
And we still communicate in stories. It's part of our DNA. So I'd like to think that we're gonna recognize that when we see it, just as we're humans.
And this is at the intersection of futurist hat and storyteller hat, Matt, is that we ain't seen nothing yet as regards industrialized, mass machine created content.
What is a word or a phrase we should no longer use in the workplace, in your workplace? What comes to mind?
I think a word that comes to mind is, it's funny, but sometimes innovation. Even though it's my life's work and I love the space, innovation can feel like a 4-letter word in some contexts.
Like, let me just innovate this sentence real quick.
Because skeptical suits reject it as a money-losing side quest. And on the flip side, enthusiastic would-be change makers just assume anything they're doing is that.
Right.
And so what
is not innovation?
Nipping and tucking, that's not really innovation. Innovation rethinks the question, not the answer.
Ooh, I like that. Man, you're full of those quotes.
Yeah, thanks, man.
It's like you're a futurist or something. Give speeches about this stuff. Mike, this was awesome. I really appreciate your time and dumbing it way down for me.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, man.
Everybody for your expertise. You guys rock.
Ilfangle.